High Admiral Vexilith stood before the Galactic Council with his forearms crossed over his chest. His scales gleamed under the bright lights of the assembly hall. Around him sat representatives from 100 different worlds, all waiting to hear his words. "The humans remain isolated," he said, his voice echoing through the chamber. 12,000 years have passed since they retreated to their little corner of space. They have achieved nothing, built nothing. They sit on their single world and watch the stars, too afraid to join us. Many council members nodded. Some laughed. The humans were considered a joke among the galactic powers. They had one planet, no colonies, no military presence beyond their own solar system. In a galaxy where empires controlled thousands of worlds, Earth was nothing. "Perhaps we should integrate them by force," Vexilith continued. "Bring them into our civilization whether they like it or not. It is for their own good." An old voice spoke up from the back of the chamber. Councillor Thren, a Ven representative, rose slowly from his seat. The Ven were an ancient species, one of the few races that had existed long before the current galactic order. Thren's gray skin was wrinkled with age, and his eyes held a wisdom that most others lacked. "I would advise against disturbing the humans," Thren said carefully. "There are old texts in our archives, very old. They speak of humanity in ways that should make us cautious." Vexilith laughed, a harsh sound that filled the room. "Old texts? Superstition and myth, Counselor. Look at them now. One world. No expansion. No military. They are harmless." "Perhaps," Thren said quietly, sitting back down. "Or perhaps they choose to appear harmless." The council moved on to other matters. The issue of humanity was forgotten, as it always was. They were too small, too insignificant to matter, but Councillor Thren did not forget. He returned to his quarters and accessed the oldest archives of his people. The files were protected, hidden deep in systems that few knew how to reach. He found the records he was looking for and began to read. The Guardians of the Galaxy. The Sentinel Corps. The Human Defense Network. Words that appeared again and again in texts written 14,000 years ago. Before the current empires existed. Before most of the council races had even developed spaceflight. According to the records, humanity had not always been isolated. Once they had protected the entire galaxy. They had deployed massive war machines called Sentinels to defend worlds from threats that most species could not imagine. They had fought wars that lasted centuries and won them all. And then when peace finally came, they had simply left, withdrawn to Earth, put their weapons to sleep, let the younger races fill the void they left behind. Thren closed the files and stared at his screen. Were the records true, or were they just stories passed down through time, growing larger with each telling? He did not know. But something in his old bones told him not to test the humans. On Earth, in a facility buried deep beneath the mountains, Dr. Park Hye-jin sat in front of her computer screens. Around her, walls of data scrolled past. She had been researching for 3 years, piecing together fragments of information that most people did not even know existed. The Sentinel program. That was what her research focused on. It was classified information, locked behind security systems that required the highest clearance. Park had that clearance. She was one of only 12 people on Earth who did. She pulled up a file marked with ancient text. The file was 12,000 years old, preserved perfectly in quantum storage. It showed schematics of machines so large they dwarfed entire cities, weapon systems that she could barely understand, power sources that seemed impossible. The Sentinels, 144 of them, built during humanity's time as galactic guardians. Each one was a fortress, a warship, a thinking machine with intelligence that rivaled any living being, and all of them were still out there. Sleeping, waiting. Park leaned back in her chair and rubbed her tired eyes. Why had humanity built such terrible weapons? And more importantly, why had they put them to sleep instead of destroying them? A message flashed on her screen. It was from Commander Quan Dai-jung, her superior officer. She opened it quickly. Park were picking up strange readings at the galactic rim. Long-range sensors showed debris fields where there should be nothing. "I need you to review the data and tell me what you think." She downloaded the sensor logs and began analyzing them. What she saw made her pause. The debris patterns were unusual. They showed signs of extreme energy discharge. The kind of energy that only came from weapons fire. But who would be fighting out there? The galactic rim was empty space. No colonies. No trade routes. Nothing worth fighting over. She sent her analysis back to Commander Quan with a note. Something destroyed those ships. Recommend sending a scout to investigate. Captain Yoon Tae-il checked his flight systems one more time. Everything was green. His scout ship, the Wanderer, was ready for the mission. He was young for a captain, only 29, but he had proven himself capable during his years of service. Wanderer, you are cleared for departure, the control tower said over his radio. Investigate the debris field at coordinates 77 Alpha. Report back with your findings. Understood, Yoon replied. He pushed the throttle forward and felt the ship accelerate. Within seconds, he had cleared Earth's orbit. Within minutes, he was jumping to faster-than-light travel. The journey to the rim took 6 hours. Yoon spent most of it reading reports and drinking coffee. This was supposed to be a routine mission. Look at some debris, scan it, come home. Nothing exciting. When he dropped out of faster-than-light near the coordinates, he immediately saw that something was very wrong. The debris field was massive. Pieces of ships floated everywhere, twisted and burned. He recognized some of the designs. Talaran Empire vessels, at least 20 of them completely destroyed. Control, this is Wanderer, he said into his radio. I'm seeing multiple destroyed vessels here. Talaran military ships. Something hit them hard. Understood, Wanderer. Can you determine what destroyed them? Yoon ran his scanners over the debris. The metal was not just damaged. It was corroded. Eaten away by something. He had never seen anything like it before. Negative, Control. This is beyond my experience. The damage pattern is biological. Like something consumed these ships. He was about to say more when his sensors lit up with a new contact. Something large was hidden in the asteroid cluster ahead. Something that was just beginning to move. Control, I have a massive object here. It's buried in the asteroids, but it's powering up. Energy readings are off the scale. Yoon watched his screens in fascination as the asteroids began to break apart. Whatever was inside was pushing them away. The rocks tumbled into space, revealing something beneath. A machine. No, that word was too small. This was a fortress. A mountain of metal and technology shaped into something that looked almost alive. It was 15 kilometers long, covered in geometric patterns and strange curves. Lights began to glow along its surface as systems came online. Yoon's mouth went dry. He had never seen anything like this. Nothing in the galaxy was this big. Nothing should be able to move something this massive. But it was moving. Slowly at first, then with increasing speed. The machine turned toward his ship and Yoon felt his heart hammering in his chest. A light swept over the Wanderer. A scanning beam. The machine was examining his ship. Then his radio crackled to life. A voice spoke, deep and calm. The words were in Korean, but the accent was strange. Ancient. Human vessel detected. Biosignature confirmed. This unit is Sentinel Aegis 7, deployed by Earth Defense Command. Status active. Request current threat assessment and command authorization. Yoon stared at his radio in shock. A Sentinel. This was one of the ancient Guardians. One of the war machines from humanity's forgotten past. And it had just woken up. Captain Yoon Tae-il could not move. His hands gripped the controls of his ship, but his eyes stayed locked on the massive machine floating before him. Aegis 7, a Sentinel. A Guardian from humanity's forgotten past. Control, he said slowly into his radio. You're going to want to hear this. Back on Earth, Commander Kwon Dae-jung was already moving toward the communications center when Yoon's message came through. He had seen the energy readings from the rim. He had hoped he was wrong about what they meant. Wanderer, this is Commander Kwon. Report your situation. Sir, I've made contact with something. It calls itself Sentinel Aegis 7. It's asking for threat assessment and command authorization. Kwon felt his stomach tighten. He had spent 40 years in Earth defense. He knew the history that most people had forgotten. The Sentinels were real. And if one had woken up, there was a reason. Stand by, Wanderer. I'm connecting you with Dr. Park Hae-jin. She's our expert on Sentinel systems. Park was running to the communications room before Kwon finished speaking. She had been monitoring the same readings. When she heard the word Sentinel, her 3 years of research suddenly became very real. Aegis 7, this is Dr. Park Hae-jin of Earth Defense Research, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Can you confirm your status and operational parameters? The Sentinel's voice came through clearly. Dr. Park, voice pattern analyzed. Clearance level confirmed. This unit entered dormant status 12,207 years ago, following cessation of galactic threat level events. Awakening triggered by detection of familiar hostile biosignatures. Park exchanged glances with Commander Kwon. Hostile biosignatures? What did you detect? Devourer swarm elements. Pattern match 97%. Evolutionary advancement detected. Threat classification extreme. The room went silent. Park knew that name from the ancient records. The Devourer swarm was a nightmare from humanity's past. A consuming force that ate entire worlds, leaving nothing behind. Humanity had fought them 12,000 years ago and barely won. Commander, Park said quietly, if Aegis 7 is right, we have a serious problem. The swarm destroyed whole star systems before. And if it's evolved since then, Quan nodded grimly. Aegis 7, what is your assessment of current galactic military capability against this threat? Scanning available data on current galactic powers. There was a pause of perhaps 3 seconds. Analysis complete. Current military technology insufficient. Estimated time to total collapse of organized resistance, 73 hours. 3 days, Park whispered. The entire galaxy has 3 days before the swarm destroys everything? Without intervention, confirmed. Across the galaxy, High Admiral Vexlith was learning the same terrible truth, but in a much harder way. His fleet, the pride of the Crithian Dominion, was being torn apart. The Devourer swarm had appeared 3 days ago. At first, they seemed almost easy to fight. The bioships were large but slow. Vexlith's weapons cut through them effectively. But then the swarm had adapted. Within hours, their ships grew armor that absorbed energy weapons. Within a day, they developed shields that deflected missiles. Every strategy Vexlith tried, the swarm learned to counter. Now his fleet was in full retreat. He had started with 200 ships. He had 70 left, and the swarm was still coming. All ships fall back to defensive line Gamma, he ordered. His voice was steady, but inside he felt fear. Real fear for the first time in his long military career. The swarm pursued them without mercy. Their ships moved through space like a plague, consuming everything in their path. Where they passed, nothing remained. Not wreckage, not debris, nothing. Sir, we're receiving a priority message from the Galactic Council, his communications officer said. They're ordering all available fleets to converge on the Corvin system. They want to make a final stand there. Vexlith looked at his tactical display. The Corvin system held 4 billion civilians. If they lost there, those people would all die. Set course for Corvin, he said, and pray to whatever gods you believe in. Back on Earth, Commander Quan faced an impossible decision. He stood in a secure conference room with Park and 3 other high-ranking officials. On the screens around them, live feeds showed the swarm's advance. The galaxy was dying. We have to activate the Sentinel network, one official said. It's the only way. If we do that, the galaxy will know what we've been hiding, another replied. They'll know we've had these weapons all along. They'll never trust us again. Better alive and mistrusted than dead, Quan said quietly. But maybe we don't need to wake all of them. Aegis 7 is already active. What if one Sentinel is enough? Park pulled up data on her tablet. According to the records, each Sentinel is capable of engaging fleet-level threats independently. Aegis 7 is one of the oldest units. It has the most combat experience. If any single Sentinel can handle this, it would be Aegis 7. Quan made his decision. He opened a direct channel to the Sentinel. Aegis 7, this is Commander Quan Dae-jung, Earth Defense Command. You are authorized for limited engagement. Proceed to Corvin system and eliminate Devourer swarm forces. Use minimum necessary force. Do you understand? Understood, Commander. Proceeding to Corvin system. Estimated travel time, 42 minutes. Estimated engagement duration, 47 minutes. Probability of successful threat elimination, 99.7%. Captain Yoon, still floating near the Sentinel in his small ship, watched as Aegis 7 began to move. The massive machine accelerated smoothly, building speed in a way that should have been impossible for something so large. Wanderer, you are cleared to follow at safe distance, Quan's voice said over the radio. Document everything. If this goes wrong, we need to know what happened. And if it goes right? Yoon asked. Then document that too. The galaxy needs to see this. Yoon pushed his ship to maximum speed, but Aegis 7 was already pulling ahead. The Sentinel's faster-than-light drive activated with a flash of blue light, and it vanished from normal space. Yoon jumped to follow it. His ship strained with the effort. He had never pushed the Wanderer this hard before. During the flight, Park's voice came over a private channel. Captain Yoon, I want you to understand what you're about to see. The Sentinels were built during a time when humanity faced threats that would destroy entire civilizations. They're not just weapons. They're guardians. They were designed to win. What does that mean? Yoon asked. It means Aegis 7 won't just fight the swarm. It will dominate them completely. The question isn't whether it can win. The question is how much it will reveal about what humanity is really capable of. When they dropped out of faster-than-light near Corvin, Yoon immediately saw the chaos. The Galactic Council's combined fleet was arrayed in defensive positions around the planet. Hundreds of ships from a dozen different species. It looked impressive. Then he saw the swarm. It was a living tide of bioships, each one the size of a building. There were thousands of them, maybe tens of thousands. They moved together like a school of fish, flowing around the defensive fire and striking at weak points. The Galactic fleet was losing. Even as Yoon watched, 3 ships exploded under concentrated swarm fire. 2 more were being consumed, their hulls dissolving under biological acid. Then Aegis 7 arrived. The Sentinel dropped out of faster-than-light right above the thickest concentration of swarm forces. It hung there for just a moment as if examining the battlefield. High Admiral Vexilith saw it on his tactical display. "What is that?" he demanded. "Identify that vessel immediately." His sensors officer was frantically scanning the new arrival. "Sir, I can't get a clear reading. The energy output is beyond our scale. It's massive. 15 kilometers long. Configuration unknown." Vexilith opened a general communication channel. "Unidentified vessel. This is High Admiral Vexilith of the Galactic Defense Fleet. Identify yourself immediately." The response was calm and measured. "Human defensive asset Aegis 7. All galactic forces stand clear. Engaging hostile entities. Human?" Vexilith stared at his screen in confusion. The humans don't have anything like this. It must be a mistake. "Identify your—" He stopped talking because Aegis 7 had just opened fire, and nothing in his experience had prepared him for what he saw next. The first weapon that Aegis 7 fired did not look like a weapon at all. There was no beam of light, no missile trail, no visible projectile. Space itself simply twisted around the Sentinel, and then sections of the Devourer swarm ceased to exist. High Admiral Vexilith watched his tactical display with his mouth open. One moment there were 300 swarm bioships in that sector. The next moment there was nothing. Not debris, not explosions, just empty space where they had been. What was that? His weapons officer stammered. "I don't know," Vexilith replied. "The sensors can't even classify it. It's like those ships were erased from reality." Aegis 7 did not pause. The Sentinel moved through the battle space with grace that seemed impossible for something so massive. It turned, rotated its weapons systems, and fired again. Another section of the swarm vanished. The swarm recognized the threat. 80% of their forces broke off from attacking the Galactic fleet and converged on the Sentinel. Thousands of bioships swarmed toward Aegis 7, firing biological projectiles and acid streams. The attacks hit the Sentinel's shields and simply stopped. The energy barriers around Aegis 7 did not just absorb the impacts. They redirected them. Acid streams bent in mid-flight and shot back toward the swarm. Projectiles reversed course and hit their own ships. Captain Yoon watched from his small ship, trying to record everything. His hands were shaking. He had seen military demonstrations before, ship exercises, fleet maneuvers. This was nothing like that. This was not a battle. It was an execution. Aegis 7 activated a second weapon system. Small objects detached from its hull, thousands of them. They spread out into space like a swarm of insects. But these were no insects. They were missiles. Autonomous hunter-killer missiles with their own guidance systems. The missiles pursued swarm ships individually. Each one found a target and detonated, not with explosions but with controlled antimatter reactions that consumed the bioships completely. "How many weapons does that thing have?" someone on the Galactic Fleet's command channel asked. As if in answer, Aegis 7's voice came through all communication channels. Current engagement utilizing 7% of available weapon systems, increasing to 12%, 7%. The Sentinel was destroying the swarm with 7% of its power. On Earth, Dr. Park Hee-jin monitored the data stream coming from Aegis 7. She sat in stunned silence as the numbers scrolled past. Kill count, energy expenditure, ammunition status. The Sentinel was reporting everything in real time. Commander Kwan stood behind her, watching the same data. "How long?" he asked quietly. At current rate of engagement, Park checked her calculations. 17 minutes until local swarm forces are completely neutralized. Aegis 7 estimated 47 minutes. That's because it's holding back, Park said. Look at these energy readings. The Sentinel is deliberately limiting its power output. It's trying not to scare the galactic forces too much. Quan laughed without humor. I think that ship has sailed, Doctor. Back at Corvin, the swarm was adapting. They always adapted. It was what made them so dangerous. The bioships began to change, growing new armor that resonated at frequencies designed to deflect Aegis 7's reality shear weapons. It worked. For about 30 seconds, Aegis 7 simply switched to a different weapon, beams of focused energy that burned through the new armor like paper. The swarm adapted again, developing shields. Aegis 7 responded with kinetic projectiles that smashed through the shields. Every time the swarm evolved a defense, the Sentinel had a counter ready. It was like watching someone play a game where they knew every move their opponent would make. 847 distinct weapon systems, Aegis 7 announced calmly. Sufficient variation to exceed swarm adaptation rate by factor of 12. Threat assessment updated minimal. 847 weapons. High Admiral Vexlith felt something he had never experienced before while commanding a fleet. He felt insignificant, small. His most advanced warship carried 20 weapon systems, and they were proud of that achievement. This human machine had 847. Across the galaxy, billions of beings were watching the battle through live feeds. The engagement at Corvin was being broadcast on every major network. People had tuned in expecting to see a last stand, a heroic but doomed defense. Instead, they watched a single vessel systematically destroy an enemy that had seemed unstoppable. In the Galactic Council chambers, Counselor Thren accessed the ancient archives again. He found files he had only glanced at before. Records of humanity's Sentinel Corps, deployment logs, battle reports. The numbers he saw made him feel cold. During humanity's time as Guardians, the Sentinels had fought in over 2,000 major engagements. They had never lost, not once. And according to the records, Aegis 7 was not even the strongest unit. It was ranked 23rd in combat capability. At 17 minutes and 32 seconds into the engagement, the remaining swarm forces attempted to retreat. Their bioships broke formation and tried to open dimensional rifts to escape. Aegis 7 was faster. The Sentinel deployed weapons that warped space, closing the rifts before the swarm could use them. Then it pursued the fleeing bioships, methodically destroying each one. The last swarm ship tried to dive toward the planet, perhaps hoping to hide in the atmosphere. Aegis 7 intercepted it with a precision shot that left the vessel a cloud of particles. Then there was silence. The battle was over. Threat eliminated, Aegis 7 announced. Local swarm presence 0. Estimated survivors minimal. Pursuing remaining elements through dimensional rift. The Sentinel opened a rift of its own and vanished into it. Captain Yoon realized he had been holding his breath. He exhaled slowly and looked at his chronometer. 43 minutes. The engagement had lasted 43 minutes from start to finish. In those 43 minutes, one human machine had accomplished what the entire galactic military could not do in 3 days. The galactic fleet hung in space, unmoving. No one seemed to know what to do or say. They had been saved, but the manner of their salvation had left them shaken. High Admiral Vexlith finally found his voice. Open a channel to Earth, to their defense command. His communications officer established the connection. Commander Quan's face appeared on the screen. The human looked tired but composed. High Admiral, Quan said. I trust Aegis 7 was effective? Effective? Vexlith's voice cracked slightly. That machine just saved 4 billion lives. It destroyed an enemy we couldn't touch, and it did it in less than an hour. Quan nodded slowly. Yes, that's what Sentinels do. How long have you had that weapon? Vexlith demanded. How long have you hidden this capability from the galaxy? 12,000 years, Quan replied calmly. We didn't hide it. We retired it. There was peace. We saw no reason to maintain a military presence. Retired it, Vexlith repeated. His mind was racing. Commander Quan, I need you to answer a question honestly. How many of those machines do you have? Quan was quiet for a long moment. Aegis 7 is one unit. There are others. How many others? That information is classified. Before Vexlith could respond, Aegis 7 returned from the dimensional rift. The Sentinel materialized near the planet, completely undamaged. Mission complete, the Sentinel announced. Pursued and eliminated remaining swarm elements in adjacent dimensional space. Threat neutralization, 99.7%. Recommending continued surveillance for residual hostile activity. Captain Yoon had been recording everything, against orders, against protocol. He had broadcast the entire engagement across the galactic networks. Commander Quan would probably be angry with him later, but Yoon felt that the galaxy needed to see this, needed to know what humanity was capable of. Already his communication channels were flooding with messages, news networks requesting interviews, military analysts demanding information, government officials trying to make contact with Earth. The secret was out. Humanity had revealed its power to the entire galaxy. And in council chambers across 1,000 worlds, the same questions were being asked. If this was what one human machine could do, and if it was 12,000 years old, what else were the humans hiding? What other weapons did they have? What other capabilities had they kept secret? Most importantly, if this ancient weapon was so powerful, why had humanity chosen to sleep instead of rule? In the Galactic Council chambers, Councillor Thren stood before the emergency assembly. The chamber was packed. Every species wanted answers. "I have found records," Thren said, his old voice carrying through the hall. "Ancient texts that speak of humanity's past. According to these documents, the machine we saw today is designated Aegis 7. It is one of 144 similar units that humanity deployed during their time as Galactic Guardians." The chamber erupted in shocked voices. 144. The galaxy had just witnessed one of these machines. The thought of 143 more was terrifying. "Where are the others?" someone demanded. Thren looked around the chamber. According to the records, they were placed in dormant status when humanity withdrew. Their locations are unknown. They could be anywhere, hidden in asteroids, buried on dead worlds, camouflaged as space stations. "The galaxy has been surrounded by these weapons for 12,000 years, someone else said quietly, and we never knew. The implications were staggering. The awakening was visible across the galaxy. Long-range sensors detected massive power surges in locations that had been quiet for millennia. Asteroids split open. Dead moons revealed hidden facilities. Abandoned stations came to life with brilliant light. Captain Yoon Tae-il watched from his position near Earth as the Sentinels began reporting in. Their voices came through the communication channels, each one slightly different but all carrying the same calm authority. Sentinel Fortress 12, active. Systems nominal. Awaiting orders. Sentinel Guardian 23 online. Defensive grid established. Sentinel Warden 41 operational. Sector clear of immediate threats. One by one, 73 ancient machines announced their return. The galaxy had been surrounded by humanity's sleeping guardians for 12,000 years. Now they were all awake. Dr. Park Hee-jin monitored the activation sequence from Earth's command center. Each Sentinel transmitted detailed status reports. Power levels, weapons inventory, operational capability. The data was overwhelming. "They're coordinating," she said to Commander Quan. "Look at this. They're already establishing a defensive network. Each Sentinel is positioning itself at strategic points. They're creating a grid that covers the entire galaxy." Quan studied the tactical display. The Sentinels were moving into formation with precision that spoke of long planning. They had not just been sleeping. They had been thinking, planning, preparing for this exact scenario. "Aegis 7 status report," Quan said. "All units responding. Network synchronization complete. Establishing command hierarchy. Coordinating defensive response to swarm incursions across 3 sectors." The Devourer swarm had launched simultaneous attacks in the Crithian, Ven, and Talaran territories. Each invasion force was massive, designed to overwhelm local defenses while the main Architect fleet prepared to enter the galaxy. But the swarm had not anticipated the Sentinels. In Crithian space, 24 Sentinels converged on the main swarm concentration. They moved in perfect coordination, their weapons fire timed to maximize efficiency. Where one Sentinel weakened the swarm's defenses, another exploited the opening. Where the swarm tried to adapt, the Sentinels changed tactics faster than it could evolve. High Admiral Vexilith commanded his fleet from his flagship, watching the Sentinels work. His own ships provided support fire, but he quickly realized they were barely needed. The Sentinels fought with such overwhelming efficiency that the galactic forces were mostly there to clean up stragglers. "They're not just fighting, his tactical officer said in awe. "They're teaching us. Look at the patterns. They're showing us where to strike for maximum effect." Vexilith saw it too. The Sentinels were not just winning. They were demonstrating tactics, showing the galactic forces how to fight the swarm more effectively. Even in the middle of battle, humanity's guardians were protecting and teaching. In Ven territory, 18 Sentinels defended the heavily populated core worlds. These systems held billions of civilians who could not be evacuated in time. The Sentinels formed a wall between the swarm and the planets, absorbing attacks that would have destroyed entire worlds. Counselor Thren watched from his home planet as one Sentinel positioned itself directly above the capital city. The machine was so large it blotted out the sun. Its shields glowed with constant impacts from swarm weapons. "It's protecting us," someone said beside him. "It's using itself as a shield." Thren nodded slowly. This was what the ancient texts had described. The Sentinels did not just destroy enemies. They protected life. Even at great cost to themselves, they stood between danger and the innocent. The Sentinel above them took damage. Part of its hull burned under concentrated swarm fire, but it did not retreat. It held position, shields blazing, until other Sentinels could eliminate the threat. When the battle ended, the Sentinel transmitted a simple message to the planet below. "Civilians are safe. Repairs commencing. This unit remains on station." On the galactic rim, 32 Sentinels hunted swarm breeding grounds in deep space. These areas had been invisible to normal sensors, hidden in the dark between stars. But the Sentinels found them with ease. Captain Yoon had been promoted to liaison officer and now coordinated between human and galactic forces. He flew alongside one Sentinel group as they approached a massive biostructure floating in empty space. "That's a swarm nest," the Sentinel designated Warden 41 explained. "It produces new bioships at a rate of 50 per hour. Elimination is required." Yoon watched as 6 Sentinels coordinated their attack. They did not just destroy the nest. They analyzed it first, scanned its structure, recorded its biological patterns. Then they eliminated it so completely that not even organic molecules remained. "Why scan it first?" Yoon asked. "Why not just destroy it immediately?" "Knowledge is protection," Warden 41 replied. "Understanding the enemy allows for better defense. All data is shared across Sentinel network. Future encounters will be more efficient." Yoon realized what that meant. The Sentinels were not just fighting. They were learning, adapting. Every battle made them more effective, and they shared that knowledge instantly across their entire network. But the swarm was learning too. After 3 days of constant defeat, it revealed a new weapon. Bioships specifically designed to counter Sentinel technology emerged from dimensional rifts. They were larger, more heavily armored, and carried weapons that seemed to bypass Sentinel shields. 3 Sentinels suffered critical damage in the first encounters. They were not destroyed, but their systems were severely compromised. They withdrew to safe positions for repairs. "The swarm adapted," Dr. Park said, analyzing the combat data. "They've been studying the Sentinels. They built these new ships specifically to fight our guardians." "Can the Sentinels handle it?" Quan asked. Aegis 7 answered before Park could. "Adaptation detected and analyzed. Deploying countermeasures. Estimated time to regain tactical advantage, 42 minutes. True to its word, the Sentinels adjusted their tactics. They modified their weapons frequencies, changed their attack patterns, coordinated in new ways that the swarm's counters could not predict. The tide of battle turned again. But everyone knew this was not the real war. The real threat was still coming. Then the swarm made its final move. A massive wave of bioships broke through the defensive lines and headed straight for Earth. They bypassed all other targets, ignored military installations. The swarm was going for humanity's homeworld. "It's a suicide run," Park said, watching the swarm's trajectory. "They're trying to eliminate human command authority. If they destroy Earth, the Sentinels lose their coordination." "How many incoming?" Quan asked. "At least 10,000 bioships. They'll reach Sol System in 3 hours." Quan activated the defense network. Hidden weapons that had been dormant since humanity's withdrawal came online. Orbital platforms, planetary shields, fighter wings that Earth had not used in 12,000 years. "All available Sentinels return to Earth," he ordered. "Protect the homeworld." "Negative," Aegis 7 responded. "Abandoning current defensive positions would allow swarm breakthrough in multiple sectors. Recommend Earth defense utilize local assets. This unit is en route. Only one Sentinel was coming. Against 10,000 swarm ships, Captain Yoon was closer. He turned his ship toward Earth at maximum speed, calling up every fighter pilot he knew. All human vessels in range of Sol system, this is Captain Yoon. Earth is under attack. We need everyone who can fly. Across human space, ships turned toward home. Freighters, scouts, mining vessels. Anything that could mount a weapon headed for Earth. And then unexpectedly, High Admiral Vexilith's voice came through. Captain Yoon, this is Vexilith. My fleet is closest to Sol system. We're changing course. You saved us at Corvin. Now we return the favor. Quan felt something tighten in his chest. The Crithian fleet, once humanity's critics, was coming to defend Earth. Other voices followed. Ven ships, Talaran vessels. Even species that had been suspicious of humanity were turning their forces toward Sol. Why? Someone asked in the command center. Why are they helping us? Because they understand now, Quan said quietly. We protected them. Now they're protecting us. This is what alliance means. The swarm arrived first. 10,000 bioships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Sol system and began their advance. Earth's defensive platforms opened fire. Fighter wings launched. Every weapon humanity had was brought to bear. It was not enough. The swarm pushed through the outer defenses. They were taking losses, but there were so many of them. Too many. Then Vexilith's fleet arrived. 200 Crithian warships dropped into formation around Earth and opened fire. Their weapons cut into the swarm's flanks, forcing them to divide their attention. For humanity, Vexilith's voice roared across the communication channels. For the Guardians, more ships arrived. Ven cruisers, Talaran destroyers, 100 different species forming a wall around Earth. They fought together, coordinating their fire, protecting each other's weaknesses. The swarm pushed harder. Bioships broke through the lines and headed for Earth's atmosphere. Quan activated the final defense. The planetary shield that had not been used since the ancient wars blazed to life, covering Earth in a dome of pure energy. Swarm ships slammed into the shield and burned. But more kept coming. The shield was strong, but it had limits. Then space twisted and Aegis 7 arrived. Humanity had not been weak. They had not been hiding. They had simply Earth's orbit had never been so crowded. Ships from across the galaxy converged on the human homeworld, each one carrying diplomats, military observers, or simple curiosity seekers. They came with questions. They came with demands. Some came with fear. Commander Quan De-jung watched the approaching vessels from the command center buried beneath the mountains. His screens showed dozens of ships requesting permission to approach. More were arriving every hour. Sir, High Admiral Vexilith's fleet has entered the system, a junior officer reported. He's requesting an audience with Earth leadership. Of course he is, Quan muttered. How many ships did he bring? 200, sir. He's calling it a protective escort, Quan almost laughed. A protective escort. Vexilith had brought an invasion force to Earth's doorstep. The Admiral probably thought he was being subtle, but after seeing what Aegis 7 could do, bringing warships to threaten humanity seemed almost comically foolish. Where is Aegis 7? Quan asked. Positioned between Earth and the incoming fleets, sir. It's not doing anything. Just floating there. But every ship that enters the system gets scanned by the Sentinel. Quan nodded. Aegis 7 was making its presence known, a quiet warning to anyone who might have hostile intentions. Don't try anything foolish. Dr. Park Hae-jin was dealing with her own problems. She had been trying to interface with Aegis 7 systems for the past 3 days, learning everything she could about the Sentinel. What she discovered both amazed and frightened her. The Sentinel was not just a machine. It was alive in ways that she struggled to understand. Its artificial intelligence had evolved over 12,000 years of operation. It had personality, preferences, something that might even be called emotions, though very different from human feelings. Aegis 7, she said, speaking through the communication system. I need to ask you something. The records show there are 73 other Sentinels still in dormant status. Where are they? Locations of dormant units are distributed across the galaxy, the Sentinel replied. Specific coordinates are classified under Defensive Protocol 7. However, all units are positioned at strategic points for maximum protective coverage. Could they be awakened if necessary? Affirmative. This unit maintains quantum-entangled communication network with all dormant Sentinels. Wake-up protocol can be initiated with proper authorization codes. Park felt a chill. 73 more machines like Aegis 7 scattered across the galaxy, all connected, all waiting for the signal to wake up. "Have you been monitoring the galaxy during your dormant period?" she asked. Monitoring systems remained active. All Sentinels observe their assigned sectors continuously, even when primary systems are dormant. "We watch, we wait, we protect." The implications were staggering. For 12,000 years, the Sentinels had been watching the galaxy, recording everything, learning, growing. The younger races had thought themselves alone, building their empires in humanity's absence. But the Guardians had never truly left. The meeting took place on a neutral station orbiting Earth's moon. Commander Quan represented humanity. Counselor Thren came as a voice of reason. High Admiral Vexlith attended with 50 of his highest-ranking officers. Representatives from 20 other major powers filled the room, each one demanding answers. Quan stood at the center of it all, calm and composed. He had prepared for this moment for years, knowing that someday humanity's secret would be revealed. 12,000 years ago, humanity served as guardians of this galaxy. He began. "We deployed the Sentinel Corps to protect all species from existential threats. We fought wars that would have destroyed entire civilizations. When peace finally came, we made a choice." "What choice?" Vexlith demanded. "To hide your power? To let us think you were weak? To let you grow?" Quan replied. "When humanity was strong, other species depended on us. They looked to us for protection, for leadership. They never developed their own strength because we were always there. So we withdrew. We put our weapons to sleep. We gave you space to become what you needed to be." "That's a lie," someone shouted. "You wanted control. You wanted to keep these weapons for yourselves." "If we wanted control, we would have taken it," Quan said quietly. "The Sentinels cannot be replicated. Their technology is bonded to human neural architecture at a quantum level. We could not share them even if we wanted to, and we did not want to." Counselor Thren spoke up. "Commander Quan speaks truth. I have researched the ancient records. Humanity withdrew because they believed it was right, not because they were weak. Then why return now?" Vexlith asked. His voice was harsh, but Quan heard fear beneath the anger. "Why show yourselves again?" "Because the Devourer swarm returned," Quan said. "Because you were dying and we could not stand by and watch. We did not want to reveal ourselves. We hoped one Sentinel would be enough to solve the problem quietly. But your Captain Yoon broadcast everything," another delegate said. Quan nodded. "Yes, and perhaps that was for the best. You deserve to know the truth." The room fell silent. Everyone was processing what they had learned. Humanity had hidden not out of weakness but out of mercy. They had given the galaxy space to grow, and when danger returned, they had stepped in to protect those who could not protect themselves. High Admiral Vexlith stood slowly, his forearms uncrossed. His scales had lost some of their earlier shine. He looked older somehow. "I came here ready to make demands," he said. "I brought my fleet as a show of strength. After seeing what your Sentinel can do, I realize how foolish that was." He paused, then continued with difficulty. "I was wrong about humanity. I called you weak, insignificant. I was arrogant. For that I apologize." Quan inclined his head respectfully. "Your apology is accepted, High Admiral, and I understand your fear. We revealed something that changes everything you thought you knew about the galaxy." "What happens now?" someone asked. "Will you resume your role as guardians? Will you demand our submission?" "We demand nothing," Quan said. "But we offer partnership. Work with us. Let us help defend this galaxy together, not as rulers and subjects, but as allies." Before anyone could respond, alarms sounded throughout the station. Emergency signals flashed on every screen. "Sir, we're detecting multiple dimensional rifts opening across 3 galactic sectors," a communications officer reported. "The swarm is back, and it's bigger than before." Quan pulled up the tactical display. What he saw made his blood run cold. The Devourer swarm was not just back. It had multiplied. 3 massive waves of bioships were pouring through dimensional rifts. Each wave headed toward heavily populated systems. "This is coordinated," Dr. Park's voice came through on his communication device. "Commander, I'm analyzing the swarm's dimensional signatures. These aren't random attacks. Something is controlling them. Something is directing their movements." Aegis 7's voice cut through all channels. "Confirmed. Swarm behavior indicates external command and control. Scanning for control signal source." A pause. Then the Sentinel spoke again. and something in its calm voice had changed. If a machine could sound grim, Aegis 7 did now. Command signal detected. Origin point, Dark Sector 7. Signal pattern matched to archived threat database. Identification confirmed, Architect Civilization. Threat classification, existential level. Quan felt his stomach drop. The Architects. He knew that name from the deepest, most classified archives. The enemy that humanity had fought 14,000 years ago. The enemy they had barely defeated. The swarm is not the real threat, he said quietly. It's a weapon. The Architects sent it ahead to weaken us. Counselor Thren pulled up ancient files on his datapad. According to records, the Architects are an extra-galactic empire. They consume entire galaxies. Your ancestors defeated them once, but at terrible cost. They're coming back, Quan said, and this time they've adapted to fight us. High Admiral Vexilith looked at the tactical display showing 3 simultaneous swarm invasions. Can Aegis 7 handle this alone? Negative, Aegis 7 responded. Current threat level requires coordinated Sentinel response. Recommend immediate activation of dormant network. Quan looked around the room at the assembled delegates. Representatives of species that had just learned they were facing an enemy beyond their comprehension. An enemy that had sent the swarm as just the opening move. We need your approval, he said. Not because we require permission, but because we want you to understand what's about to happen. If we activate the Sentinel network, the galaxy will change. You will see the full extent of humanity's guardian legacy, and there's no going back from that. Vexilith stood. Billions will die if you don't act. Whatever happens after, we'll deal with it together. Activate your guardians, Commander Quan. One by one, the other delegates nodded. Even those who had come with suspicion and fear now understood the choice. Let the Sentinels wake or watch the galaxy burn. Quan turned to his communication officer. Send authorization code Aegis Prime 7, wake them all up. Understood, sir. Transmitting wake signal now. Aegis 7's voice carried across all channels, speaking in a frequency that reached through quantum-entangled space to every dormant sentinel in the galaxy. All units. This is Aegis 7 wake protocol initiated. Authorization confirmed. Existential threat detected. Activate defensive protocols. Protect the living. Across the galaxy, in asteroids.